Resting membrane potential. Learning objectives are to describe the term resting membrane potential, discuss the genesis of resting membrane potential, and enumerate any method to record the resting membrane potential. You can record the notes for this lecture in this format. So let's start this topic by first defining the term resting membrane potential. As you can see, this is a three-letter word: resting, membrane, and potential. So it can be defined as a difference in the electrical potential that is existing across the cell membrane when the cell is in the resting state. So we have all these three terms included in this definition. That is, we have the cell membrane, we have the membrane in the resting condition, and a presence of an electrical potential. When a cell membrane of a cell is in resting state, it doesn't mean that cell is not metabolic active. It is in the resting state means that it is not excitable. Although the cell is carrying out the metabolic activities of taking the nutrient and removal of the waste material, performing its function of protein synthesis, DNA, transcription, translation process, but the cell is not excitable. So there is no electrical change across the cell membrane. This is what is meant by the resting membrane potential. So we have different type of resting membrane for the different cell types. For the skeletal muscle, as you can see, it is ranging from -85 to -95 millivolt. Then for the neuron, it is -60 to -70 millivolt. Erythrocyte, it is -8 to -12 millivolt. So this slide emphasizes on the point that each cell has a different resting membrane potential according to its physiological role. And when we say it is negative resting membrane potential, then we are meaning that the inside of the cell is more negative as compared to the outside of the cell. So it is a relative term where we are comparing the inside of the cell as compared to the outside of the cell. Now, since we are clear with the definition of the resting membrane potential, we can move ahead to the genesis of resting membrane potential, how the resting membrane potential is generated in a particular cell. So we have 5 important factors for the genesis of the resting membrane potential. The first factor being the selective permeability of the cell membrane. Second, the Donan's effect, which is also known as Gibbs-Donan membrane equilibrium. Then we have diffusion potential, known by the name of Nernst equation. Constant field Goldman equation, which influences the resting membrane potential. And in the end, we have the important role of sodium-potassium ATPase pump, which help to maintain the membrane potential, which is created by the selective permeability, Donan's effect, Nernst equation, and the Goldman's equation. So these two important factors are responsible for creation and the maintenance of the resting membrane potential, and the other 3 factors are the contributing factors. Now, talking about the first factor which influences the resting membrane potential is the selective permeability of the cell membrane. We had talked about the selective permeability nature of the cell membrane in our initial classes. The cell membrane is highly selective because of the presence of ion channels, carriers, and pumps. So all the type of substances cannot cross the cell membrane. It is highly selective in nature. Now when we talk about the resting membrane potential, we mean that this membrane is selectively permeable to the different ions. We have number of cations ranging from potassium, sodium, calcium, and number of anions which are bicarbonate, chloride, etc. So this membrane is not equally permeable to all these ions and cations. It is more permeable to certain ions and less permeable to the other ions. For example, when we talk about potassium, the cell membrane is more permeable to potassium as compared to the sodium. So we have more of the potassium leaking from the inside of the cell to the outside as compared to the influx of sodium from the outside of the cell to the inside of the cell. So with our previous knowledge on ion channels and carrier proteins, we can safely say that number of leaky channels of potassium are more as compared to the sodium channel. These leaky channels do not have any gate, so they allow the tripping of these ions to the inside of the cell and from the inside of the cell to the outside. So you can also see in this diagram the number of potassium leaky channels that are depicted in blue color are more as compared to that of the sodium leaky channel, which are green in color. And as I said, these channels are non-gated channels. So the leaky channel of potassium, if they are more than the leaky channels of sodium, what will happen? More of the potassium will leak outside the cell as compared to the influx of the sodium. So this will result in creation of the potential difference, concentration difference. Why? Because more of the positive ions are going out of the cell as compared to the ions which are entering the cell. So if more of the potassium leaks to the outside of the cell and less of sodium enters the cell, so what will happen? The cell will become more negative. So this is the first contributing factor of resting membrane potential that leads to the inside being more negative as compared to the outside. So I hope we are clear with the first point or the first factor which influences the resting membrane potential, that is selectivity of the cell membrane. Coming on to the second factor which influences the resting membrane potential or plays an important role is the Donan's effect, which was given by Gibbs. So this effect states that when an ion on one side of the membrane cannot diffuse through the cell membrane, that is, it is not permeable, the distribution of other permeable ions occur in a predictable way. So let us understand what is meant by this. So let us try to understand this Donan's membrane equilibrium with the help of this example, in which a cell membrane is separating the two chambers, that is chamber A and chamber B. So when we talk about chamber A, we have number of cations and number of anions. According to this Donan's membrane equilibrium, it states that number of cations and number of anions, they will be equal. If we have 5 cations, then we'll have 5 anions also, and both will be diffusible. So this is also applies to chamber B. The number of cations will be equal to number of anions which are present. This is first statement. The second statement is that number of cations and anions in chamber A will be equal to the number of cations and anions in chamber B. So let us understand this concept with this slide. Supposedly, a cell membrane is permeable to all the types of ions which are present in chamber A and chamber B. Here, this is an hypothetical example in which in chamber A we have 10 sodium and 10 chloride. So the number of cations, that is sodium, is equal to number of anions, that is chloride in chamber A. And this also applies when we talk about chamber B. Number of cations, that is 10 potassium, is equal to 10 bicarbonate. So the number of cations and anions in each of the chamber is equal. That is satisfying the first statement. Now the second statement is the sum total of cations and anions in chamber A is equal to the number of cations and anions in chamber B. So what happens? As we can see, in chamber A we have sodium and there is no sodium ion in the chamber B. So what will happen? It will try to move along the concentration gradient from chamber A to chamber B. And then we talk about chloride. Then again chloride will try to move from chamber A to chamber B since there are no chloride ions in the chamber B. Now we talk about anions and cations of chamber B. So what will happen? Potassium will move from chamber B to A, and similarly bicarbonate will move from chamber B to A. So after some time what will happen? The concentration and the electrical gradient will be created, as a result of which these permeable ions will try to achieve an state of equilibrium by redistributing themselves in a predictable manner, as was stated in the equation, as was stated in the definition of the Gibbs effect. So we have these ions and cations which are balancing each other in chamber A and chamber B. So we are clear with this, that number of cations and anions, if they are permeable, then they redistribute themselves in a predictable manner. So the situation now is different when we talk about the property of a chamber which has ions which are not permeable. So we have taken this again a hypothetical example in which the extracellular fluid we have mentioned 10 potassium and 10 chloride, whereas in the intracellular fluid we have 10 potassium, then we have chloride and protein anion. The protein anion here refers to the plasma proteins which are negatively charged and they are non-diffusible. They cannot diffuse. Why? Because they have a larger size, so they cannot cross the cell membrane as such. So if we talk about the extracellular fluid, the number of cation is equal to number of anions, that is 10 potassium is equal to 10 chloride. And if we talk of intracellular fluid, the number of cations, that is 10 potassium, is equal to number of anions, that is 10 anions that is made by protein anions and the chloride anions. Okay, and the number of cations and anions on the both sides are equal, that are 20 on both the sides. So what happens? Again, we go to the similar process, that since chloride is not present in the intracellular fluid, it is less in amount, it is just 5. So what will happen? Chloride will start moving from a high concentration gradient to a lower concentration gradient from the extracellular fluid into the intracellular fluid. So when there is a movement of chloride, it also carries a negative charge. So in order to balance this negativity, there is also a movement of potassium ion. So what will happen? The potassium will also move from extracellular fluid to the intracellular fluid. So what do we see? We see that there is increased number of osmotic particles in the intracellular fluid because of the movement of chloride and potassium from the extracellular fluid to the intracellular fluid. Do you agree with this? So what do we have? You can see in the extracellular fluid we have just 10, that is cations plus anions, whereas in the intracellular fluid the number of cations and anions have increased. So what will happen? This increased number of anions and cations on the intracellular fluid will cause the development of a gradient, that is electrochemical gradient, across the cell membrane. And we can very well establish this fact that number of cations and anions on one side of the membrane is different from the other side. That means there is asymmetry of the ions on both the side of the membrane. So this asymmetry of the ions in the cell across the cell membrane is resulting in the development of the charges across the cell membrane. So we agree with this, that because of this asymmetrical distribution of the ions across the cell membrane, we have the production of the gradient, that is electrical gradient, and the chemical gradient across the cell membrane. So by these hypothetical examples, we come to a conclusion that protein ions are more in intracellular fluid than the extracellular fluid, and they are more osmotically active particles in the intracellular fluid. So there is redistribution of the ions which were permeable, and that redistribution occurred just because of the fact that the ion we had, that was plasma protein, was non-diffusible. That resulted in asymmetry of the ion distribution and creation of the gradient, that is concentration gradient and electrical gradient across the cell membrane. So if we say we have no more number of potassium ions on the inside or the intracellular fluid, then how is it possible that our membrane is having a negative membrane potential? Let us try to understand it. The resting membrane potential is then contributed by a third important factor, which is given by the Nernst equilibrium, which allows the distribution of ions across the cell membrane, and the nature of the membrane determines the diffusion potential. So let's understand this concept. So till now we have discussed that because of the selective permeability of the membrane, there is leakage of the potassium ion to the cell interior, contributing to the negativity of the cell. Then we had the Donan equilibrium, and because of this Donan effect, what happened that more of the potassium was concentrated to the inside of the cell as compared to the outside. So starting from that point, we can discuss in this slide that if more of the potassium is present in the intracellular fluid, it will move along the concentration gradient from the intracellular fluid to the extracellular fluid. Okay, and when this movement will occur, more potassium will go to the outside of the cell, and since potassium is positively charged, what will happen if it moves outside the cell membrane will become more negative. So in order to prevent this, we have this electrical gradient which is trying to oppose the movement of potassium along the concentration gradient, and this is because we have these negatively charged undiffusible anions, and in order to maintain the electron neutrality of the cells, these prevent the diffusion of potassium to the outside. So ultimately an equilibrium is attained, or an understanding is achieved for a particular ion that is achieved between the concentration gradient and the electrical gradient for an ion across the cell membrane. And this is what Nernst equation is all about. So Nernst equation is the establishing of equilibrium between the concentration gradient that is causing movement of potassium from the intracellular fluid to the extracellular fluid, and the electrical gradient which is opposing the movement of the potassium to the outside of the cell for an ion across the cell membrane. So let us understand by taking each of the ions separately. So as I said, this equilibrium potential for any ion is calculated by Nernst equation. So here we have this equation in which we have equilibrium potential for a permeant ion, that is given by RT over ZF, that is log of ion outside to the log of ion inside. So if this equation is simplified, then for the potassium, all the constants are replaced by the value of -61 of log of potassium inside over outside. So if we replace these values with potassium inside is more, that is 140 millimoles per liter, and then we have potassium outside, that is 4 millimoles, and we substitute these values in this equation, we get the diffusion potential of potassium, that is -94 millivolt. So what do you mean by this term is, at the -94 millivolt, the concentration gradient and the electrical gradient have achieved an equilibrium. If it is -70 millivolt, then what will happen? If any voltage is -70 millivolt, what will happen? Then we have more of a concentration gradient for potassium, so more of potassium will leak outside the cell. And if the value is -100 millivolt, then what does it mean? Then it means that we have more of the electrical forces or the gradient opposing the movement of the potassium, so we don't have any movement of the potassium. So let us calculate now the diffusion potential for the sodium. The equilibrium point for the sodium diffusion for the concentration gradient and the electrical gradient will occur at the value of +61 millivolt. This is the equilibrium value at which the concentration gradient and the diffusion and the electrical gradient will reach an equilibrium. The resting membrane potential will be closest to the equilibrium potential for the ion with highest permeability, here it being potassium. So in this slide we have a depiction of resting membrane potential. First we have the diffusion potential of potassium, that is -94 millivolt shown by a blue arrow, and then we have diffusion potential of sodium which is shown by +61 millivolt by a yellow arrow. And the resting membrane potential we know is ranging from -90 millivolt to -70 millivolt. Now the question is, why this resting membrane potential, which is Vm, that is potential across the membrane, it is so close to the diffusion potential of potassium? You can see here the red arrow is very close to the blue arrow depicting the diffusion potential of the potassium as compared to that of the sodium. So why is this so? It is so because this because of the selective permeability of a membrane. So the membrane is far more permeable to potassium than to the sodium. So the resting membrane potential is closer to that of the potassium. So if we think of a situation in which the membrane characteristics are altered in such a way that it becomes more permeable to sodium. So what will happen? In that situation, the resting membrane potential will be closer to that of the sodium. So in this slide, we want to emphasize the point that the selective permeability of a cell membrane is an important key determinant for the resting membrane potential. So in this slide, we can see the different concentration gradient of ions, sodium, potassium, chloride and calcium. And also we can calculate the equilibrium potential for the different ions. For example, for sodium, we have calculated it is plus 61 millivolt. For potassium, it is minus 94 millivolt. Chloride, it is minus 70 millivolt. And calcium is plus 130 millivolts. So this calculation can be done in the Nernst equation by replacing these values of concentration for the different ions. So after getting the concept of diffusion potential for a particular ion in the Nernst equation, we come to the conclusion that since a cell membrane is permeable to different type of ion, a single ion cannot be held responsible for the resting membrane potential. It has to be an integrated role of different ions according to their permeability and the concentration gradient for the generation of membrane potential. As we said in the earlier slide, we had potassium, sodium, calcium and chloride. So all the different ions contribute toward the resting membrane potential. It is but a sum total of permeability and concentration of different ions, which is given by this Goldman-Hodgkin-Katz equation. So here we have the membrane potential Vm is equal to RT upon F log of permeability of potassium and its concentration gradient outside N, then permeability of sodium, its concentration gradient sodium outside N, then we have for the chloride, that is permeability of chloride and its concentration inside out. So in this slide we can know that it is an integrated role of different ions in the generation of resting membrane potential. So one important point when writing this equation, we have to know that this equation differs for the chloride ion. For potassium, as you can see, the concentration gradient is written potassium out divided by potassium in. The concentration gradient of sodium is sodium out, then sodium in. But when we go for the chloride ion, it is written chloride inside divided by chloride outside. So it is so because the chloride has a valency that is negative, it is -1. So this has led to the reversal of this equation for chloride, and then we write the chloride inside over chloride outside to bring up. So by this equation we know by now that this resting membrane potential depends upon the polarity or the electric charge of the ion, the permeability of the ion and the concentration gradient of the ion, that is inside out of the membrane, which is given by this equation. So the net driving force for any ion is a difference in millivolt between the membrane potential and the equilibrium potential for that ion. So if we talk about potassium, the net driving force for the potassium will be -94 minus 74, that is 20 millivolts, and for sodium the net driving force will come out to be 135 millivolts. This slide shows that if we change the permeability of sodium and potassium, so the resting membrane potential will also be altered in that condition because it is selectively permeable to different ions and these influence the resting membrane potential, as we said earlier. So if the potassium has the diffusion potential of -94 millivolt and if the permeability of the potassium is increased, then resting membrane potential will move closer to that of the potassium. It will become more negative. So effect of this changing of the permeability for the sodium, what will happen? More of the sodium will diffuse to the inside of the cell. So the resting membrane potential will become more positive. So the permeability of sodium, potassium or any other ion which is responsible for producing resting membrane potential is very important factor in influencing the resting membrane potential. So what are the key points that have come out from the Goldman constant field equation? First key point is that we have integrated role of different ions. As we said, these ions are mainly sodium, potassium and chloride. They are the important contributors of the resting membrane potential. Second, the membrane permeability of each ion influences its contribution to voltage. So if it is more permeable for the sodium, then the membrane potential will become more positive. If it is for potassium, it will become more negative. So the different ions influence, the permeability to different ion will influence the resting membrane potential. So in the end, when the membrane potential has been created by the different effects of selective permeability, Donan's equilibrium, Nernst equation and the Goldman equation, we have the sodium potassium ATPase pump, which is responsible for efflux of 3 sodium ion against influx of 2 potassium ion. So this electrogenic pump is responsible for the movement of these ions across the against the concentration gradient, and because of the movement of these ions, what will happen? More positive ions are leaving the cell and less positive ions are entering. The coupling ratio is 3:2. So what will happen? It will also contribute towards the resting membrane potential, and its contribution is -4 millivolt. Secondly, it also helps in maintenance of the resting membrane potential. How? Because of the diffusion of sodium and potassium inside the cell, there is increased number of the osmotically charged particles, and it is because of this pump that we have this maintenance of the cell volume, and the concentration gradient for sodium and potassium are maintained. As a part of self-assessment, you can rearrange the series of events that are responsible for the generation of resting membrane potential. The 5 factors which contribute towards the genesis can be rearranged. So let us summarize what we have learned about this topic of resting membrane potential. As you can see here, the figure on the left side, we have the diffusion potential for the potassium ion is -94 millivolt for a neuron, and for the sodium it is +61 millivolt. And since we know sodium and potassium are the important contributors of resting membrane potential, so when sodium is +61 millivolt and potassium is -94 millivolt, we get a contribution of -86 millivolts from both of these ions, and then a contribution of -4 millivolt from sodium potassium ATPase pump. And if we try to sum up all these things, then we get a resting membrane potential that is -90 millivolt for a neuron. Now the membrane potential can be recorded by microelectrode or the cathode ray oscilloscopes. In the microelectrode, we have two types of electrode, one which is present inside the cell membrane and it is present in the intracellular fluid. The other one is in the extracellular fluid and is responsible for this system of the microelectrode is responsible for recording of the potential across the cell membrane. And then we have the amplifier and the cathode ray oscilloscopes through which recording can be made. So it is basically a pipette with a diameter less than 1 micrometer, and then we have the recording by this microelectrode. Cathode ray oscilloscope, also known by the name of CRO, records the electrical event of the living tissue instantaneously. It has different components. It has a cathode, which is also known as an electronic gun, and when it connects to the anode, it releases a series of electron which passes through this cathode ray oscilloscopes, and it produces a recording on the fluorescent screen. Then we have the charged vertical and the horizontal plates along the path of the electron, and we have microelectrode for recording of the nerve potential, and the electronic amplifier, as the name suggests, to amplify the potential that has been received. Here you can see in this animation how the electron cathode or the electronic gun is firing the electrons, and these electrons then are moving ahead and are deflected by the horizontal plates which are charged in nature. So these electrons will be attracted toward the positive charge plate and repelled by the negatively charged plates, so that it can form a continuous recording on this fluorescent screen. Then it moves ahead, and then it is passed through the vertical plates, and these vertical plates are connected to the nerve, and whatever potential change is occurring in the nerve, it is causing the movement of the electrons towards or away from the vertical plates, and then a recording is obtained on the fluorescent screen that is vertical in nature, and the potential can be recorded. So it is useful to study and record the waveforms. So the take-home message for this topic will be that there are 5 important contributors to the resting membrane potential. The key one being the selective permeability of the cell membrane because of the presence of leaky channel for potassium and sodium, where potassium contributes more as compared to sodium, bringing the potential towards its own side. And then we have the sodium potassium ATPase pump, which is responsible for maintenance of the resting membrane potential. Thank you.